A recent video has been widely shared on X showing a Chinese woman defecating and urinating in public on a busy street in Shibuya, Japan. The incident happened near one of the busiest train stations in Tokyo. She ignored the large crowds around her and relieved herself on the street, eventually being detained by the police. This sparked another round of heated discussion among Japanese about the behavior of Chinese tourists. One Japanese user angrily said, "Please don't do in Japan what might be normal in China." Another pointed out that if you put up a sign in Chinese, "Please don't relieve yourself here," some people would get angry and call it discrimination. But if the sign is written in Japanese or English and people can't read it, they still do it, so the sign is basically useless. In another incident, an American TikToker named Mimi came to China and documented her travels. When she arrived in Shenyang, she saw something that completely shocked her. On a busy street, a neatly dressed older woman suddenly squatted in the middle of the road and defecated, right there in public. Cars were passing by, people were riding electric bikes nearby, but the woman seemed totally unfazed. Mimi was left speechless by what she saw. A person from Taiwan commented, "Right now, the thing people around the world remember most about Chinese tourists is the issue of defecating in the streets. Wherever they go, they just go anywhere. It's like toilets don't exist. From restaurant tables to busy roads, from tourist spots to subway cars, they just go wherever they feel like it." During the COVID outbreak, when there were no Chinese tourists, this problem basically disappeared. Is this what people mean by "with Chinese characteristics"? Many people find these incidents both ridiculous and frustrating. But that's not all. Recently, a popular Chinese TikToker with millions of followers caused outrage in Japan due to his behavior. While filming a video, he trespassed onto the course of the famous Hakone Ekiden race. The Hakone Ekiden is a historic relay marathon held every New Year, running between Tokyo and Hakone for over 217.1 kilometers. It's considered the longest relay race in the world. The TikToker, known as Shen Wuze, has 4.7 million followers. He went to film the event but ended up stepping right onto the track with his friends. Despite repeated warnings from staff, he ran alongside the athletes and even shouted in Chinese, "Let's go!" He ignored all the race rules, and many people were shocked by how inappropriate his actions were. Japanese social media users criticized him for chasing attention instead of respecting the race. They said his behavior showed a selfish attitude and a total disregard for the athletes. Many of his own followers were embarrassed. They pointed out that Shen is a marathon fan himself, and he should have known better and realized his actions would disrupt the race. One person commented, "You weren't there to support the athletes, you just wanted views. Stop going overseas and embarrassing us." Shen Wuze later apologized on social media, admitting that he had not followed the event's rules. However, netizens weren't impressed. They criticized him for only apologizing in Chinese and not Japanese. They claimed it lacked sincerity. They felt his apology was just a formality and not genuine at all. From the streets to the racetrack, Chinese tourists continue to come up with creative behaviors. But their actions don't stop on the ground. They've even disrupted things in the sky. Let's take a look at more incidents that have recently occurred on airplanes. Recently, 2 female passengers made headlines for causing a disturbance on a flight, even biting a flight attendant. On the evening of April 1st, during a flight from Shenzhen, 2 women seated next to each other suddenly started arguing. One complained about the other's body odor and sprayed perfume on herself, while the other woman mocked the scent, saying the perfume was unpleasant. The argument escalated from insults to full-blown violence, with the 2 women physically fighting and screaming at each other. 2 female flight attendants and 1 male flight attendant tried to break them up, but one of the women struggled violently and bit a flight attendant on the arm, causing her to scream in pain. Meanwhile, other passengers trying to intervene were scratched, and the scene became chaotic. One passenger in the back became ill from the stress. The police later detained the 2 women, and the flight was delayed for over 2 hours before it could take off. Chinese tourists' uncivil behavior on overseas flights isn't an isolated case. Some even insist on hard bargaining for hot water. On a Thai Lion Air flight, the airline had a policy that hot water was only available with a purchase. However, a Chinese couple had a heated argument with a flight attendant, demanding free water to make instant noodles because they didn't want to pay for overpriced items on the plane. They accused the airline of forcing them to buy things. The woman even ignored another flight attendant's warnings, filming a video and saying to the chief flight attendant, "You're representing Thailand and all Chinese people are watching you." After the 2 passengers were forced to disembark, they were detained. A netizen commented, "All Chinese people are watching you now. How embarrassing. Is this your first time flying? Do you think people should be obligated to prepare a rice cooker just because you bring rice?" On March 17th, a Chinese woman was arrested in Japan for allegedly assaulting a female train attendant. The incident occurred when the 68-year-old tourist was checked during a routine ticket inspection. The attendant found that the woman had only bought a regular ticket instead of the required express ticket, and informed her she needed to pay the difference. However, instead of complying, the tourist pushed the attendant in the stomach. Several passengers witnessed the incident. The victim immediately called the police, and after an investigation, the authorities determined the woman's behavior constituted an assault. She was arrested on the spot. Despite the charges, the woman denied the accusations, claiming she didn't intend to push the attendant and it wasn't deliberate. After the incident was exposed on Japanese social media, nearly 1,000 comments appeared within hours. Many Japanese netizens expressed strong discontent, arguing that the incident was not only disrespectful to the flight attendant, but also a challenge to public order in Japan. Recently, Chinese tourists' behavior has shocked all of Japan. The video shows the state of the Japanese guest house, where this tourist stayed. It's a mess. There were various pieces of trash scattered on the dining room table and sink, toilet paper everywhere around the toilet, and the guest took the room's cups, towels, and slippers with them. To make matters worse, the guest had booked the room for one person, but actually brought 6 people, and since Japan charges by the head, the guest was later required to pay the extra fees. This incident highlights the low character of some Chinese people, who seem to have an incredible ability to steal things. There's nothing they won't take. From guest houses to streets, their opportunistic stealing happens everywhere. In Chengdu, a woman was caught late at night prying up the stainless steel bars on a road which were meant for blind people. A young girl tried to stop her, explaining that the bars were meant for blind people and that it was illegal to take them. But the woman ignored her, took the bars, and quickly left. The police later detained the woman. A blogger commented, "China has 8.3 million blind people, making up 21% of the world's blind population. Yet the occupation of blind roads has always been a problem. Some blind people say they're too scared to walk on these roads because they're filled with obstacles like tree pits, electric bikes, and fire hydrants. Sometimes 30 to 40 obstacles in just a few hundred meters. How can this be considered a blind road?" Not only are blind roads unsafe, but even people with good vision are not safe from unexpected dangers. A driver was on the road when suddenly a sewer cover flew up and hit his car window. The cover had been dislodged when another car ran over it. Fortunately, the driver wasn't hurt. Some selfish behaviors even target other people's special moments. On one wedding day, the groom discovered that half of the flowers on his wedding car had been stolen by a neighbor. When the neighbor's wife came to apologize, the man refused to admit to stealing and even threatened to hit the groom. His wife tried to stop him, but the man refused to apologize and even acted arrogantly. In another more extreme incident, a woman was caught breaking off a small golden emblem from the groom's luxury car, a Rolls-Royce that he rented for 5 million yuan for the wedding. As the car entered the village to pick up the bride, a group of people surrounded it, asking for candy and cigarettes. The groom, having prepared for this, was still caught off guard when a woman rushed to the car and shouted, "You can't enter the village without giving us 200 yuan. The groom, unable to afford all the red envelopes for everyone, refused. In response, the woman, who probably thought the emblem was valuable, broke it off the car. When the groom saw this, he was devastated. The emblem was worth 200,000 yuan, and the groom had to deal with the financial loss. He argued with the woman, who arrogantly replied, "How could this little gold man be worth 200,000 yuan? Who are you trying to fool? You're just showing off with your expensive car while asking me to pay for your broken emblem. It's robbery." The woman's response made the groom furious, and he had no choice but to call the police. Eventually, the woman's son negotiated a compensation of 180,000 yuan, and the woman, upon learning of the payment she owed, regretted her actions and broke down in tears. A Chinese woman recently caused a scene at a supermarket checkout when she was caught stealing. As the store employee noticed, the woman kept pulling items out from under her clothes. She had managed to hide not just a thick blanket, but even a cooking spoon. As if that wasn't enough, the woman then lay down on the ground and started making a fuss, trying to avoid the situation. Her behavior left everyone stunned. In another instance, 2 Chinese women who were stealing marinated food showed impressive skill. They quickly took the items while the staff was distracted for just a moment. There's an even more outrageous story about a young man selling goods at a street market. While he was busy, a group of older men and women took advantage of his momentary distraction and stole from his stall. The young man, unable to stop them, had to repeatedly chase after the thieves in the streets. He even said that he was busier than the police, and he had been stolen from over 300 times in 1 year. Netizens felt bad for him, but also admired how sharp his instincts had become from all the thefts. Otherwise, he might have gone bankrupt by now. In another case, an older man was caught stealing cauliflower by a farmer. The farmer was furious and remarked,
"Look at this small cauliflower. You took it, isn't it a shame? How frustrating is that?"
The farmer also expressed his frustration with the ungrateful behavior from people from the city. He said,
"Folks, they're back again. Every weekend, city people come to our fields. I don't mind giving you a few crops to take home, but you won't take them. Instead, you climb on tree branches to take pictures. Look at those peppers. Some women even stick them in their hair as flowers. You think that looks good? And the yams. Some of you pull them out to eat, which is fine, but others pull the vines off to make ropes for tug-of-war games. You really think this is some kind of playground? And then, some families don't even know the difference between wheat and chives. They sit on the crops, bouncing up and down. Do you think our crops are wild, like on the grasslands?"
Finally, a group of elderly people in Sichuan caused trouble by destroying a community reading corner meant for children. Liu, a local resident, explained,
这人要到老了，你可以啥都没有，但是就是不能没有德。
A while ago, the property management and community set up a public reading corner for the kids to read, but this group of older people who gathered to dance every evening didn't like the idea of the reading corner and tore the bookshelves down. They danced in the lobby around 7 or 8 p.m., disturbing the nearby tutoring classes. Eventually, both the property management and the police got involved, but the final solution hasn't come yet. A female blogger expressed her frustration, saying, "Respecting the elderly and caring for the young is indeed a traditional virtue of Chinese culture. But to earn respect, the elderly must first show self-respect. You can enjoy yourself, but you shouldn't disturb others, especially in public. If you don't act like an elder, how can younger people respect you?" In another case, a group of elderly tourists from Beijing caused chaos in Hangzhou. On March 23rd, over 20 elderly tourists, unable to get on a bus at a scenic spot, blocked the road, occupying multiple lanes, and stopped the bus. They demanded an extra bus, causing a traffic jam for nearly 2 hours. Despite the police's efforts to persuade them, the bus company had to send a special bus for the elderly tourists. The scene of elderly people laughing while boarding the bus angered many online. The next bus was only a few minutes away, yet they insisted on preventing it from leaving. A man in a yellow shirt shouted at the bus driver, demanded that another bus be sent. The police arrived but were powerless. Who would dare to move the elderly? If one of them fell, who would take responsibility? Although the law stipulates a fine or detention for such behavior, it ended with a compromise. One blogger remarked,
当夕阳红变成拦路虎
Worse than blocking the road is blocking people's hearts. What we need is not verbal attacks on the elderly, but for the law to play its proper role. Fines and detention shouldn't just be written on paper. Age is not a shield for breaking the law. You can have white hair, but don't let disrespect for the elderly tarnish their dignity.
At a luxury resort in Hainan, many guests were awakened early in the morning by loud music blaring from a loudspeaker used by elderly tourists. On March 24th, a man named Wu caused an uproar on a high-speed train. Not only did he take off his shoes and place his feet on the seat of a female passenger, but he also ignored both the woman and the train staff's requests for him to stop. When the woman tried to film the incident, he even slapped her hand. He was later detained for his actions. In another instance, an elderly man tried to steal a park bench from a young woman by sitting directly on her lap. The woman, startled and furious, screamed, "Stop being a pervert!" Passers-by also tried to persuade the man to get up, but he continued to ignore them. There's also a case where an elderly couple drove against traffic, blocking a car. Not only did they refuse to move, but they also jumped out of the car and began yelling at the other driver. Similarly, another elderly man riding an electric bike went the wrong way, blocked a car, and then proceeded to smash the car window while cursing at the driver. From supermarkets to street stalls, these selfish behaviors by the elderly are truly frustrating. But their boldness doesn't stop there. They even carry their disruptive behavior abroad. They don't just dance wherever they go, they also sing wherever they please. A group of Chinese women on the subway in Japan was caught singing loudly without regard for others. Young passengers tried to avoid them, while other carriages remained quiet. A Chinese netizen commented, "How embarrassing! Why do they have to act in such a way that makes others dislike them?" Even animals seem to have an aversion to these individuals. A netizen shared a video showing a horse happily approaching a Japanese woman, allowing her to pet it. However, when the same horse encountered a Chinese woman, it bit her aggressively. The commenter noted, "Animals have sensitive instincts and can tell if a person is kind." In recent years, Chinese tourists' uncivilized behaviors, both domestically and internationally, have frequently caught attention. From public urination on the streets to brawls on airplanes, and even theft and vandalism of public property, these incidents are shocking and have led to people to reflect on their causes. China has a rich and ancient civilization, and both Japan and South Korea were significantly influenced by the culture of China's Tang Dynasty and Confucian values. However, since the Communist Party took over in 1949, things have changed. Some argue that the country's cultural depth was disrupted when a group of revolutionaries took over, allowing vulgar culture to proliferate. This might be one cause of today's social issues. Chinese scholar Zhong Zhiyun once discussed the spread of vulgar culture in China. He said, "Since the day the Peasants' Army took over China in 1949, it determined the cultural level of this country and its people. A group of people who never wore underwear, never had enough food, never had moral boundaries, and were determined to oppose advanced civilization. How could they become refined and noble?" Famous Chinese actor Chen Pei-si, who was popular in China but suppressed by state media, also shared his views in an interview. He said,
This world should have rules. It would be better for all of us if we lived with rules. If there were no rules, we could still get by, but it can't go on like this forever. We've been living in such a broken society for decades. Do we want to spend the rest of our lives like this? It's exhausting. Let's change for the better, shall we? Sometimes when we praise the past, we're actually praising an abnormal era, a time when humanity was eroded, when people's dignity wasn't respected, and when irrationality reigned. Someone has to speak out, or else, 50 or 100 years from now, our descendants will look back and be angry, not at the strong powers, but at everyone who accepted that power. My descendants will surely be ashamed of me.